Hi, I'm Patricia Tagley. I'm an executive coach and life coach, and this is Trish Time. And today, our guest from the Greenburgh Public Library is John Sexton. Welcome to the show, and thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about your background and how you came to the Greenburgh Public Library?
Well, I have been a librarian for 23 years and started my career as a second or third career, actually, in Oregon, and was working in the town of Ashland, Oregon, which is famous for its Shakespeare Festival. And I was the young adult or teen librarian there and loved that work. Did it for 15 years or so before an opportunity arose in Westchester County as a teen services consultant to the 38 libraries that comprise the Westchester library system. And so I came here at the end of 2007, or maybe September of 2007, and worked that position until I came to Greenburgh as the assistant director, at the Greenburgh Public Library in 2011. And I have been there since and been the director for the past 3 years or so.
And because we did meet before we actually taped the segment, and I was telling you that when I first went into the library, because although I know, as many viewers I'm sure know, where the library is in Greenburgh, I was amazed. You know, when I entered it the first time, the new building, which has been there for a while, I was amazed at just the atmosphere and the feeling of the library. It's not that old, stuffy library books type of, idea that you have in your head when you hear the word library. It's this open, beautiful space where people are interacting. Not so much on the second floor, but on the first floor, just a little bit more. So tell us about how that atmosphere came about and what the mission of the Greenburgh Public Library is.
Well, libraries, as everyone knows, have changed dramatically, especially the last 15 years or so. And everyone's conception of what a library is the stacks of books, the librarian at the desk. Yes. Perhaps even the shushing, as hard as that is to say, because I think that was a stereotype that wasn't really fair to the librarians, who are very active and very proactive in promoting literacy, especially with younger people. But of course, starting in about 1993, right when I came into the profession, it seemed that the internet was establishing itself as an alternative. It started off as one little computer in a library, and for example, now in Greenburgh we have over 70 public access computers, terminals, and iPads. But we all knew that the game was changing. If you could Google something, and of course Google didn't come along until probably around 2000, and before that there were a number of different search engines, but clearly search engines were taking the place of what librarians were doing. If someone had a question, previously they'd come to a librarian and to the library or call us up and ask their question. We would do the research. We would know where the answers could be found that were authoritative and correct. And we always saw that as that's what we do that Google might not do. We can assure you that you're getting the right information, especially if it was a health question, things where you couldn't afford to make a mistake in giving bad information. But Google got better, search engines got better, and people began to rely more and more on the internet. Consequently, libraries took a real hard look at themselves beginning in about 2000 to 2007 or so. There was a real reflective period. And we realized that what we did best was foster community and promote lifelong learning. People never stop learning. People never want to stop learning. They always want to know more. And so we cater to that curiosity. And if you want to know about something, where do you go? Well, you can go to the internet. But if you want to go somewhere and be with other people learning about something, you might come to the library. And we began to shift our attention to the collections and having the books that had the right answers, to fostering community by providing programs that supported that curiosity, whether it was about business or how to do a resume, how to work a Word document or a Excel spreadsheet, how to foster better memory as you age is another thing. It's funny because in 1990, or so when I became a teen services librarian. Libraries have been very, very good at serving children. But once they became teenagers, it was like, you should go somewhere else, go outside and make noise, but don't come in here. And that was really a transition where libraries had to become more vibrant places. If you're going to have teenagers in after school, which was a huge need both for the community, the teenagers, the families, and the library, we all met together and provided great services to teens. And the growth in young adult teen literature has been astonishing, and you've seen it in the films that have been made over the last several years. That started in libraries serving teens, but as we did a better job of that, we realized, well, what about adults? We're not really serving adults. People use the library when their kids use the library as parents, and then they don't use the library until they need it. And usually it's after their retirement age. So we began focusing more on what do people in their later 20s, 30s, 40s need. And now it seems like we focused quite a few programs on older adults because as we age and retire at earlier ages, older adults have quite a bit of time on their hands, and yet they have a hunger to learn more and to be active and in connection to one another, and the library serves all of those needs.
I know that one of the programs that you have at the library for children has to do with coding for girls. Yes.
We just 2 weeks ago started a program that is based on the STEM and STEAM research where schools are focusing on mathematics and engineering, or abstract concepts that traditionally have been the fields of interest for boys. And it doesn't mean girls weren't interested, but there's plenty of research about the biases even in schools that teachers would call on the boys first, and the girls had their own track, and that's thankfully changing quite a bit. And we have a couple of young high school students providing, and they're girls from local high schools, providing the classes to instruct girls on how to code, create their own games. And we have done that same program without it being mentored. It was just the boys would get together, and it was all boys. And this is really good to have something focused on girls who can support one another and have a role model saying this is how you do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, as you say, foster that community, and it's a peer community, so which feels a little bit more comfortable as opposed to having maybe a slightly older person handling the class where there's a little bit more of distance because they're not speaking the same language. So in this sense, you're bringing people of relatively the same age together to teach each other about programming and that type of those types of subjects. But also, as you mentioned, for the later generation, you have knitting classes.
Well, we have something for everyone.
Yes, you
we
do.
have a librarian, and I guess to connect to what I was saying earlier about the teens being the library, we recognize that the older adult aging population are the new teenagers. And so the librarian who did serve teens several years ago is now serving that older adult population with the same enthusiasm and creativity and getting the same response she did from teenagers. So not only do we have knitting programs, we have what we call creative aging programs, engaging the mind in creative activities, whether it's art. Today there's a sketchbook drawing class, for example. Thursday there'll be a political discussion group that gets together. On Fridays there's an old-fashioned hootenanny guitar strumming sing-along that has from a dozen to 20 seniors getting together and singing folk songs and playing guitar. So we're really focused on that, but that's not to say we don't cover the whole spectrum. Whether it's we've tried board gaming nights for adults in their 20s and later 20s. We'll do anything. If people respond, if there's an interest, we will do a program. And oftentimes we'll have community members facilitate, like the young women doing the coding for girls, having a display. We talked about relationships in the community, and one of our values is exploring and demonstrating the abundance of community. Every individual in the town of Greenburgh has something to contribute. Just as I tell my staff, every one of us has something to contribute to the greater good of the library. And engaging everyone on that level makes for really dynamic and I think excellent programs that are rooted in the individual talents in the community.
And I think you also mentioned that you actually have concerts that are open to the public, and then you also have art shows. for local talent. So if you can just talk about
One of my concepts especially has always been that the library exists as the cultural hub of our community. I used to, in my work with teenagers, try to explain to a sixth grader what a library is, and you get really good at sort of honing it down. And a library contains everything that we know and everything that we can imagine. And that, I've never found a better explanation for it. And of course, the arts are things that we can imagine and do to connect us to being human, I think. So we have exhibits, art exhibits, painting, photography, sculpture that continually rotate through our multi-purpose room. We do have concerts, and I should mention that those are funded both by our town budget, but a large proportion of those programs are funded by our Friends of the Library group, which is a separate nonprofit that raises money so that we can have excellent musicians come in, whether it's classical, jazz. Next week we have a woman who is specialized in some vaudeville acts, and that she reprises. And next week, on Sunday, she's doing a program called "Wish You Were Here," the songs of lost love in World War II, celebrating the 61st anniversary of the ending of World War II. So there's endless array.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had the privilege of attending a workshop at your library. So there are meeting rooms too.
Yes.
That are available for the public if you want to speak about.
And we have a large meeting room that can hold up to 120 to 150 people. And they are both rented out for a fee, whether it's a 4-hour fee. So the smaller 2 rooms have 2-hour fees and units. But we have an abundance of meetings that go on with private organizations, public organizations, government organizations. It is the place you go to have a meeting. The difficulty is it's very hard to get a room because it's booked so well in advance. One of our blessings is that we have ample parking. We have 128 parking spots. And a day like yesterday, when I took family members just from out of town to show them the library for the first time, there was no parking because there was a recital going on. There was a book discussion group going on. There were finals are coming, so there are a lot of students preparing for their finals. We do have a very studious atmosphere upstairs, as busy as it is. It's a very quiet, adult study-friendly area upstairs. And then again, there is a teen section of the library where the teens can be teenagers, and that usually includes conversation. We try to keep it from being too boisterous. And then there's children who, of course, are from 2 to 3 years old, can be brilliantly noisome, I suppose. But it's just part of being a library that's inclusive of everyone. So
you have all these programs, and strategically, what direction are you going in?
Well, we just completed a 6-7 month process to develop a new strategic plan that will cover service from this year and through 2019. And really it is focused on the community. It is focused on providing people with opportunities for lifelong learning, literacy, satisfying that curiosity, being a source for discovery and delight, which I think I told you about my little my equation. When people are curious about something, they can get their curiosity satisfied across the broadest spectrum imaginable at the library. And when you satisfy your curiosity with information and you get that something, the word is delight. You have answered a question, and I saw that in the faces of several people in different circumstances. Sometimes it was a concert, people coming out of a classical concert by local musicians of outstanding talent, and they're just so delighted because they found something that was otherwise missing in their life. They were curious about a program of music, came to the library, and they leave delighted. That same delight can happen on the face of a person who sees a bestseller they wanted to get, and there it is on the shelf for them to take away. So what we want to do is foster that sense of delight. What can we do to make ourselves not just a cultural hub, but a place where anyone in the community can come and satisfy their curiosity and walk away with that sense of delight. I think if libraries follow that track, we will be a vital part of community.
Well, that's one word. When we had talked prior, that's one word that described exactly how I felt when I walked into the library. for the first time, in the new building, I was just really delighted at the atmosphere, like I said earlier, at how friendly the staff was, at what was available. I walked around just to acquaint myself, and having been in a school with the typical traditional library and grown up with that, having to see what was available, definitely the word delight was part of my experience. And I've gone back several times since then. And like I said, I was privileged to attend one of the workshops there, and I'm also I have to, I guess, look way ahead on the calendar to figure out when I can do my own workshop there. I will definitely avail of the space. But the other thing that I want to bring to the attention of our viewers is that you have an app now.
Yes. Well, we have many apps and many resources. In fact, our mission statement includes the words that we are a source of literacy and learning. But being a source means you have an abundance of resources. And one of the changes that's gone on in libraries is having electronic resources. And it started many years ago with an array of databases that libraries had. Some people knew how to use them. Some people just didn't even know we had them. They were a well-kept secret because one of the challenges for libraries is to market the abundance of resources that they have. And the big one right now is ebooks. Ebooks are, if you're marketing them well, ebooks are a wonderful thing because people will respond to them. If patrons don't know you have ebooks, then you might struggle to have that recognition. We're doing a really good job. We've had workshops where people can come in with whatever e-reader they have, whether it's a Kindle, a Nook, which is not in use so much anymore, tablets, an iPad, your iPhone. You could come in. How do I get books on this? And we're really excited because one of the most recent additions to our array of resources is a new app-based ebooks program from 3M, since taken over by a European firm called Biblioteca. And it is as simple as you can imagine. It's 3 steps to get started. You can scroll through by swiping the shelf of books, and you see a book you want, and you tap on it. It starts downloading, and you can be reading within a minute. I'm very excited about the ease of use. We also have another, through the Westchester Library System, a shared resource called Overdrive, which is another platform for ebooks. There's yet another one that is app-based called Total Books, where you can download the app, open an account, which is just your library card number and your PIN, and in Total Books you can find a book, tap on it, it'll download to your device and stay there forever. There is no return. And then the library is just charged by how many pages you read. So if you read the whole book, great, we cover that cost. If you download it, and I recently downloaded a travel book, and I just wanted 8 pages of the travel book, and I used them, and the book is still there if I ever want it. I think it's our next great marketing. We're actually in the process of marketing Total Books better now. So every month we're at the library focusing on one particular app-based resource for electronic books in these first few months of 2016. And we also have tutorials. If you're a high school student preparing for college entrance exams, you can work one-on-one with a tutor online. We have something called lynda.com. If you've ever known about Photoshop or being a life coach, you would know there's a full array of personal and professional development resources, and that's free to any community member through the library. So you'll be surprised how much you don't know that the library has, and it's my job and our job as librarians to make sure you get what you're paying for. I think when I came to Greenburgh, it was the most stunning library I'd seen. And the town invested $20 million to make that building what it is, which is an aspirational piece of architecture. And how do we make that into a library? Well, it started out at that transition time when that money was funded and the library was built. Libraries were still all about books. And so they were the transactions. Check out this book, check out that DVD, check out, at that time, video cassette probably. Well, we've changed a bit. While we still have those resources to check out, almost 250,000 books every year, books or DVDs. it's more about the transformation that goes on through these programs. That's what keeps people coming in. The books are important and will probably never go away from a library. There'll always be some form of a book or reading material because it's about literacy. But for example, right now we're focusing on digital literacy. And while there are books about that, a lot of that is one-on-one. We're not exactly teachers. We're, like you, a coach, and we'll coach somebody and lead them to the resources where they can learn themselves, because when you empower someone and walk them through the steps of using lynda.com, or this is how you download something, then they're on their own, and it's a good feeling.
Yeah, it definitely is. And for the professional like myself, if you want to write a book or even want to write an article where you have to do some research, apparently there are some peer-reviewed articles, or peer-reviewed articles are available at the library, which is something I didn't know before.
Yes. We may not have as many as a full-blown academic library, but all of the libraries in Westchester are part of a journal subscription service, where not only do you have access to current newspapers and popular magazines and articles. Usually it's not the full magazine, it's the article itself, but then there are peer-reviewed academic journals that we have access to. And it's an abundance of resources that are out there. It's almost overwhelming to try to keep track of.
Yeah, I was that particular aspect of the library, among the others, obviously. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, because again, when I write my articles, I like to refer back to an expert, and it's so important to have peer-reviewed articles, and it's not that easy. They're not that easy to access. If you want them, you can find them online, but you have to pay for them.
Right.
And sometimes, if you have to keep paying for 20, 30, it starts to cost. Yeah. So I was very happy to find that this resource is available at the library. That's great. But another thing that I would like to talk about is you have on your website passes for the Stone Barns Center for Food and Agriculture.
Yes. Last spring, the Stone Barns, in order to better control the volume of visitors on a weekend, when they would get 12,000 people coming on a weekend. Some I may be wrong about that number, but it was a stunning number. And the parking facilities, they were being overrun. So they instituted a fee service. They charge a car $20 now to come in on a weekend. But they reached out to a number of libraries near Kenneco Hills area where the Stone Barns is, and offered us museum-type passes that will allow a family to come in on a Saturday or a Sunday when they would otherwise charge $20. It is, by the way, free from Monday through Friday. So we are able to check out those tickets online. You can go to the library website, and you should go to the library website, www.greenburghlibrary.com, and you can just scroll through what is called the e-resources for many of the electronic resources I've talked about, or services for some of the programs. There's a calendar that will describe upcoming events, and something on the right-hand side that will lead you to the Stone Barns tickets. And hopefully by the beginning of summer, we will have a broader array of museum tickets. It's one of the most asked for services, and we've never had the budget to buy enough passes for our community, but with the support of the Friends of the Greenburgh Library, we do have the ability to go out now and get tickets, and are in the process of setting that up. So we're excited about that.
Well, that's really great. And John, thank you so much for coming on our
welcome.
show. Like I said, it was wonderful meeting you the first time. It's wonderful having you on the show, and hopefully this show will extend the knowledge of the library, the Greenburgh Public Library, to the town of Greenburgh, as well as to Westchester. And for the Coach's Corner, this week we'd like to think about the library as not just a transactional center, but more of one that brings the community together. And now, having heard from John all the features and the events that are available, how are you going to make use of the Greenburgh Public Library? And again, this is Trish Tagley, Executive Coach and Life Coach. Thank you for being with us on Trish Time. See you again. Bye-bye.